Hey everybody, welcome to Grounded Roots Healing. I'm Jason and I'm an alchemist, and I have had a couple of really difficult days. Really difficult. It's one of the hardest stretches I've had in a long time, and I finally figured out why last night with the help of a lot of friends of mine and my loving wife and YouTube. But what it is integrating my shadow. Now, also, I had a astral trip last night where I met 7th D or 7th density Elon Musk. It was amazing, actually. He's a really nice guy when you get past his shadow aspect. But I'll get to that towards the end. And for the meantime, what I need to do is explain what this is. So we've all heard of it. You got to integrate your shadow. You got to integrate your shadow. What the heck does that mean in practical terms to you, to me, to something we can implement? And, I kind of had an idea what it meant, but turns out not so much. What I was actually doing was trying to suppress it. Integrating it means recognizing that it is part of you. It's not something to be thrown away or suppressed. And it's just something to be essentially parented and recognized as part of you so that you can avoid the system, the matrix, the other team from exploiting that part of you. It's a weakness, essentially. But it is part of you. This is it. You have to accept it. Okay, so let's go back to what it is in the first place. To me, it's the ego, essentially. It's the part of you that developed based around separation. So you forgot your divinity. Your part, when you decided, or not, I don't know, it's not a good word. When you were finally convinced as a child that you are not God, that you are separate, you are the body, and that God is something to be worshipped outside of you. When that finally takes hold, let's say, and it was around 7 years old for me, you become associated with the body, and the ego develops from there. And it's also around the point where we start, even before this, but we start getting socialized and conditioned by society to believe all the things I said before, as well as many other things. Most of them detrimental to our health. Most of them designed to keep us separate from nature and each other, which is the only way that the other team can control us. Okay, so this is very difficult to describe. So you get to this point, you're 7 years old, when you finally have the split. the ego and the real you split into two people, essentially. There's one in there. He's just sitting in there. And he believes that he is the body and he is in control. And the vast majority of the stuff we do is run from that side of us, from that shadow side of us. The darkness, the part of you that thinks deplorable things and does deplorable things and is impulsive and reacts quickly and doesn't think before he jumps. I'll give examples here shortly, but that part of you, it starts to run the show. Now, in the background, your divine self, your oversoul is there, and it's responsible for you showing kindness to people in certain situations. But from that point on, it's a constant battle between the ego and the higher self, and the ego and the higher self. And, you know, there are points in your life where that has been necessary. That part of you, that shadow part of you, has been something that has been really important in keeping you safe. So it's completely necessary, or we wouldn't have made it to where we are at this point in our lives. You know, it tries different things. The fight, flight, freeze, fawn responses, those are all part of your shadow side. The part of you that will, this is difficult. The part of you that will respond snappily at someone to push them away, because in the past, when you've allowed people to do that to you, allowed people to get away with something like that, it has resulted in a negative outcome, or at least as far as the ego is concerned, the shadow self. So you develop these patterns, these behavioral patterns, that when someone says A, I do B, i.e. someone there's a perceived slight against your ego or yourself, where there's someone trying to knock you down a peg, you immediately turn it around, and maybe you're really clever and you come up with really cutting things to say that hurt those people deeply. Or maybe you just get angry and you lash out to push them away, to make sure that they don't do this anymore. And this is what we do. It's animalistic in many ways. It's part of the body-mind complex that evolved on this planet to keep us safe and I won't say from lions, tigers, bears, oh my. And we don't need it anymore. We don't need it. However, it is part of you. You cannot subjugate it, like I thought before, and silence it completely. At least not at the level where we are right now. You know, we're heading towards a 5D, which is 5 density, not dimension, in my opinion. But before you get there, you have to go from 3 to 4 to 5. And on that progression, there's varying levels of integration and varying levels of subjugating this thing. I'm certain that by 5D, it will no longer have any effect on our outward lives. But we're not there yet. And I have still an ego. It still pipes up in the background. It still says things and thinks things that I would prefer not to have it do, or I would prefer not to believe that I have those thoughts, even. Therefore, we go into a denial state where we tell ourselves that, well, no, that's not us. I didn't think that. You absolutely did, but it isn't you. It's part of the body-mind complex. The you that is the oversoul, the divine being, is not thinking this stuff. But what we don't realize, most of us, is there's 2 of us in here. At least. There's an inner child there as well as many other ways to look at this way of thinking. But for sure, there's an ego and a shadow self in there. And so last night, after talking to my friend Angela, she has a channel. I will link her channel below. She does some channeled messages, and they're extremely high level. So they may not resonate with a lot of people, but if you feel compelled to go over and check that out, please do it, because you're operating at a high level and it is for you. And I have just had this sense that I should say that, because there might be a handful of you on here who will resonate with her. Well, she's a lot like me, so that would explain it. Anyway, I was talking with her, and she's kind of been mentoring me through a lot of this stuff, because she's already been through it, and she understands the way I understand it, very similarly to what I think, the way I think. So it's easy for her to explain it in a way that makes sense to me. And if you're following this channel and you're part of the Soul Tribe, that may apply to you as well. So she basically came out and told me that I needed to do shadow integration. And it didn't click until later last night when I was sitting, as usual, by myself, just contemplating or listening to some sort of message through YouTube or whatever platform I'm on, but usually YouTube. And then I'll get it. It'll just click. So I've known this, like I said, conceptually for a long time. But now it's clicked. So as soon as it clicked, I was like, oh, you know, the time that I've had a problem in my life with people questioning me. Not being heard or seen is a big problem for me. It has to do with my upbringing and my autism and people not really understanding what I'm talking about. I've always been like this. I talk differently than most people. I think way differently than most people. So it's led to this inner child and the shadow self being very annoyed when people don't understand what I'm saying. It's as if the ego takes a hit because it feels the ego side. Remember, we're talking about two people here now. The side of me feels that I'm not being heard and that it's a knock against me because maybe I'm wrong. And it essentially goes back to having no confidence, which is part of my being raised up the way I was by the people who I was raised by, which is all divine and all part of the bigger plan, and it's exactly how it was supposed to go. And I was supposed to figure this out right now. So it clicked, and then I started going through all the things that I do and integrating them. Now, what does that mean? Like, that part of me that doesn't like when people question what I'm talking about, because it makes me feel as if they're questioning whether or not I would lie, essentially. My authenticity is what they're questioning. The shadow self feels this and immediately reacts. Well, I know that's not the case. I know I talk differently. I know I'm authentic. I know this with every fiber of my being. I'm not trying to be deceitful. I can't do that. But that's the part that triggers the shadow side of me. So how do you integrate this little weird thing that we have? And we all have these, by the way. We all do, unless you've integrated it. Well, I guess you still have it, but you've integrated it. You have to look at it and understand where it's coming from. And the next time that happens, you have to parent that part of you. When you feel that anger and the bristles coming up on your back over someone questioning you, understand that is your shadow self. That is your shadow self bristling. Don't pretend like it doesn't exist. Don't try to quiet it and shove it down. Listen to it and then teach it the proper way to react in that situation. This is your responsibility. You're to reparent yourself on all these things that you don't want to happen. It doesn't mean ignore it. If you ignore it, eventually it's going to come up, and that's what I went through yesterday. So, all of last night, I spent the entire night going through various things that I do that I pretend like I don't do, and then parenting it. And as soon as I turned the camera on, it happened. I got tested. So the dog is here, and I mean literally, as soon as I turned the camera on, she came over and started making a racket and playing around. And this is the universe testing my patience. I wanted to get this video out. I wanted to start talking about this right now, and the dog came over to push me. You can't get angry at the wind for blowing. Well, how would you get angry at the dog for just coming over? It doesn't, well, maybe it knows what it's doing, but it's doing it for your higher good. So I am historically very impatient. That shadow side of me is brutally impatient. To the point where you get angry at a dog? Like, it's insane. And my higher self knows that that's insane. You can't get angry at the wind for blowing. But until you integrate that and you realize that that's what's happening, your shadow is getting annoyed because it wants to get this out and it knows it's important, or even just wants to get it out. It's an impatient being. Recognize that that's part of you. Because if you don't, the matrix, like using the dog, and it will keep testing you until you get this. It'll keep pushing you. And not only that, it'll exploit you. It'll exploit that weakness you have where you haven't integrated that part of you. For example, I snapped at someone last week. And in my eyes, I chalked it up to autism and having low energy and my guard going down, which is kind of true. But all of that just resulted in my shadow side coming out and me saying something hurtful. Now, that's fine. That's the shadow side of me. It came out. I let it slip through. I didn't catch it because I hadn't integrated it. I tried to pretend and suppress it. And then I didn't even, my ego was too big to apologize right in the moment. I did later, but like what you want to do is catch that before it takes over the driver's seat. You want to stop it. You want to parent it and tell it, listen, you have to be patient here. Other people have other opinions. Yours isn't always right, etc., etc. And quiet it, put it to the side, but don't pretend it doesn't exist. You think those things. Okay, so then I had this epic dream last night where I was in the astral plane and I encountered Elon Musk. I had a conversation with him for at least an hour. We walked around a facility. This is all energetic, so it was it's a setting, a play set that gets developed by each of our minds in order for us to interact in the astral in a way that would make sense for me. And in that way, he looked like Elon Musk, like every picture that you see of him in this 3D realm. But what this was for was to realize that 70 Elon Musk, who's Arcturian, by the way, or at least has spent a lot of lives on Arcturus, and that's why the behavioral patterns are the way they are for him, does not have an integrated shadow on the 3D side. 70 Elon Musk is a wonderful human being. 3D Elon Musk is impulsive, and his shadow is not integrated. He does not even know he has that. He doesn't understand that that's what's happening. When he says hurtful things and snaps at people and does the things that I described I was doing before. They're two different people. 7D Elon Musk, seventh density, is angelic. He's a wonderful being. They all are. We all are. This would include all the other people you can think of that might be deplorable in a 3D sense, who haven't integrated their shadow side, like the Donald, for example. But this is a strategic move by, there's my dog, another one of my dogs. I'm going to be patient. Hi, Wolf. Hi, buddy. These people haven't integrated their shadows, and this is strategic, like I said. They're put into this world because if they had integrated their shadows, they'd be too peaceful. They wouldn't be able to compete in a 3D world if you don't use your shadow side. You have to use it to get ahead in a 3D world, at least in the way that the world was set up before. That's why many of us who have a, let's say, weaker shadow, or we've suppressed our shadow to a degree, we don't succeed very well. Not in the 3D world. That's changing. This is how it's going to work. So people like Elon, who I believe is fighting for our side, he's not aware of it, but he is. And he's been left asleep with his ego firmly intact and his shadow self being used to make his way through that 3D world. To be a successful businessman, you have to be ruthless. And you can't do that if you're a 5D or higher being. You just see the divinity in everybody else, and you don't want to play that game. So how would that work? He has to be an unintegrated, asleep entity. But he does mean well. That you can see his higher self come out in some of the stuff he does, and you can see his lower self, the shadow self, come out in many things that he does. And it's a play by our side in order to disrupt the system. I think eventually he will awaken to his divinity and he'll understand. But for right now, he needs to keep playing that side of things. Keep playing in that field. And it looks pretty messy. So, like I said, he was 70. Elon is an amazing human, but he's not even human. We're all energetic beings on that side. At 70 or higher, we're just an energetic being. It's the way you act and incarnate. It might be in Arcturus, it might be somewhere else, it may be all of that all at once, i.e. it's like a multiverse, which is probably the title of my next video. I'm starting to get a good idea about how the multiverse and time works. Or a stronger idea of how that works. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. So, there you go. You got to integrate that shadow if you want to stand a chance of ascending higher. You're going to. It's going to happen as it should, just like it happened for me. But these are big breakthroughs, and they're getting close to the end of this, at least from the 3D to 4D level, the end of the ascension process to that point. It never stops, but this is a big step in integrating the shadow means moving to 4D, in my opinion. So I think I'll leave it there. Like I always say, I hope this video finds you well. I love you all. You're all me. And we'll see you soon.